Welcome to Test Those Breasts podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Vaughn. I'm a retired teacher of 20 years and a recent breast cancer survivor. My life has been pretty nutso for over a year, and many of you most likely know just how overwhelming this diagnosis is, and the more I can help empower women, the better. I launched my podcast on June 11, 2023, which was the 1-year anniversary of my diagnosis, as a healing mechanism, and have made it my mission to help shorten the learning curve for future diagnosed breast cancer patients and their caregivers. I want you to know that you are not alone. I was told from the very beginning that being diagnosed with breast cancer opens us up to the sisterhood of all sisterhoods. But some people need that extra help and encouragement and all of the confusing and many times downright scary information they are being flooded with. I've been interviewing many survivors, caregivers, oncologists, surgeons, nurses, therapists, advocates, and more in order to provide much needed holistic guidance for your journey. Breast cancer is such an epidemic, so the more empowered we are, the better. Now let's listen to this next episode of Test Those Breasts. Today, I have my new friend, Jennifer Terstriep, on my show. I actually met Jennifer a while back on a Zoom meeting with Nevada Cancer Coalition, and I was super drawn to what she does for a living. Jennifer has been a registered nurse for nearly 25 years, originally from the Midwest, but now residing in the Southwest the last 15 years. Jennifer's initial clinical nursing focus was as an operating room nurse with a heavy focus on trauma response at level 1 trauma medical centers and teaching universities. After 15 years of operating room clinical experience, Jennifer changed her clinical focus to hospice and palliative care nursing in 2013. With the success of Jennifer's clinical oversight and team building within Phoenix, Arizona, and Reno, Nevada, Infinity Hospice Care programs, along with mobile palliative care programs, Jennifer was promoted in September of 2021 to Chief Operating Officer of Infinity Hospice Care with oversight of all operations within Arizona and Nevada. Infinity Hospice Care has full hospice and palliative programs operating in Phoenix, Arizona, Las Vegas, Nevada, Pahrump, Nevada, and Reno, Nevada. Jennifer puts a heavy focus on individualized plan of care for all palliative and hospice patients that are admitted to the programs that she oversees and manages directly with her clinical and marketing teams. Jennifer also serves as the Chief Executive Clinical Liaison at multiple Nevada hospitals, including Sunrise Medical Center in Las Vegas, St. Mary's Medical Center, Carson Tahoe Medical Center in Reno, Nevada. All Infinity Hospice Care programs are deemed Level 5 We Honor Veteran status. We strive to give the veteran and the family the specialized end-of-life support needed. We partner with other veteran community-based programs to deliver not only expert medical support, but also the recognition to the veteran and the veteran's family that has served for all of us individually and our country. Jennifer is married to her husband of over 30 years, has raised 4 grown children and 3 grandsons, and a 4th baby granddaughter on the way. Well, welcome, Jennifer. I am so happy that you are on my show. We are new friends. I want to let my audience know that I met you actually on Zoom, probably maybe a month or month and a half ago for a meeting for Nevada Cancer Coalition. And I became very, very intrigued with what you do for a living. You are very much involved with hospice care and palliative care. And so I reached out to you because I wanted more information on this. It was just so intriguing. And then we went to lunch. We had a great time. We had a good connection. And so welcome to my podcast. And I am so happy that you're here to share more information with my audience. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you. And thanks for having me. I've been really excited about this opportunity to talk to anyone who's listening to your platform and show. Obviously, typically it's talking, as the show says, test those breasts. So obviously my professional lane is palliative and hospice care. And so I know with us, just the brief talkings that we've had, which have been good talks, there's a lot of misconceptions out there in the community and through the country. And so thanks for letting me to come on today. I'm excited to kind of share some information.
Great. Well, I know that whenever I've heard the term, especially hospice care, it meant imminent death to me. Like I thought, oh my gosh, they are in hospice care and the end of their life is like right there. So come to find out that is not really what that necessarily means. And so I would love for you to share what hospice care means, what palliative care means, and sort of try to squash that myth for people who have always thought that as well. Like, what are some of the benefits and things like that?
Well, there's a lot of confusion within the name itself. Palliative is used and intermixed with hospice care. Palliative, meaning that you've got good control of any sign or symptom, whether it be good, bad, or otherwise. You could say that your nausea has been well palliated with Zofran. So that's in and of it a word. But palliative care overall is looking, and that's a patient that either isn't too far progressed in their illness, whether it be severely chronic or terminal, and maybe they're getting aggressive treatments for their specific disease process. So that could be someone who's on a palliative program. And one of the things about palliative is that some are in brick and mortar, but really most are a mobile model. I run a mobile model of a palliative care program. So we're able to go directly to wherever the patient's home is. And it could be their private home, it could be a skilled facility, but we're able to go there and to offer a level of support to the patients, the families. Maybe that's social services that we can tap into for that patient. And a lot of times it's chaplaincy support that they're wanting and accepting of. So a palliative program, we shouldn't think of it as the primary PCP, but think of it as an additional layer of medical support in the community that is working jointly with the doctors that you are still actively seeing for treatment. So that, I think, wraps up palliative care. But there is certainly, a lot of confusion out there. Hospice, as you said, a lot of it is there's just a really strong feeling about that word. And it's certainly my life's mission to kind of destigmatize that word, that it is linked to death and dying. But on the other hand, hospice is it is what it is, and it's providing that end of life comfort care for patients and support to their families. I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've been a nurse for a lot longer, but the ability to bring that specialized hospice medical team into someone's home, and preferably before that they are in the last days or weeks of their lifespan. It's a wonderful thing to have someone on our program for 6, 9, 10, 12 months, sometimes longer. It depends a lot on the individual terminal diagnoses, but a lot of people think, well, there's a 6-month rule, and that's inaccurate, but it's something very common because at a 6-month period after being on for utilizing your hospice benefit through Medicare, for example, you would have to have a face-to-face with a physician or with an NP, and that would then qualify you to continue on. So the facts are there is no shelf time period for palliative care or for hospice care ever. And that's something that I found right away, that people thought that there was a time limit, and there's not. It's based on medical eligibility and where each individual is in their journey and their progress through their either debilitating chronic illness or their terminal diagnosis.
Okay. So that makes total sense then, because I've heard people say, oh, my father is on hospice care. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, he's going to die like in a month or whatever, or a week or whatever. And then come to find out they are actually alive, like even a year later, but they were on that care. So that just totally makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. Because it's just, that's just
we have Jimmy Carter, our prior president, Jimmy Carter, down in Georgia, is on hospice care. He's been on for quite a few months now. those of us in the hospice world and that really are passionate about that it's not, again, just about death and dying. It's a choice of care and how you receive care. And it's great to bring that specialized care into someone's home. In this case, using our prior president, Jimmy Carter, they're bringing hospice care into his home. And it's wonderful to read. His grandson has made some comments to CNN and saying how they're enjoying their time and that they're happy and they're comfortable. President Carter and his wife, Rosalind, who has advanced dementia, that they're together there in the home. And so we've really enjoyed as a company to read those. So it's great because that in itself is helpful. Us doing this today hopefully helps someone. I mean, that's our goal, to say, hey, maybe I qualify for this and it's not so scary as it sounds. So yeah.
Yeah, that actually brought a little tear to my eye. I think that is so great about the Carter family.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm just picturing it right now. It just seems to me that it's so much better than being in the hospital and dying and living out your life in the hospital when you can be at home and getting this care. It just seems that it's a lot more doable and, enjoyable, maybe, if you will. Palliative care, would that mean, so when I had cancer, I had a mobile service come to me and give me hydration.
Sure.
Is that sort of what palliative care is? Or would I be getting meds from them? How does that work? Am I misunderstanding that?
I don't think you're misunderstanding that. I think that as far as like a country in different pockets of the United States, we're going to have more aggressive mobile healthcare than other parts. So I'm very familiar with Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Reno. And if I look at all of those, there's a lot of mobile different services that anyone can tap into in Phoenix and certainly in Las Vegas, like the hydration, So it can be absolutely a part of palliative care. And we do consultations and med review extensively, and can report back to an oncologist, for example, because maybe they're using just a straight oxycodone and not much with it. And that there's a patient that has extensive metastasis maybe to the bone. And that's where we then refer back and say, hey, let's try a steroid. Let's try a different long acting and manage that in a little different way. And oncologists are always very open and welcoming to that. And again, the ability to go as a mobile palliative practice to patients' home is extremely priceless to be able to bring that there. And it does help with the relationship too, as well as those that are on our palliative program that aren't quite there for of varied reasons to access their hospice benefit. They get to know us because we run palliative teams in all of our markets in Nevada and Arizona. And so those patients that are being on palliative, maybe they're on for a year and a half. But at the point, if they, unfortunately, that they do transition to hospice, they're very comfortable with the team. Mm-hmm. They feel they're in good hands. They understand. So a lot of things about palliative and hospice is that just people don't know. They don't know the benefits that, and even, doctors and their staff and nurse navigators. And this isn't just from Nevada, but a lot of work I've done down in the Phoenix, Arizona market is just that they didn't know, and that's kind of my passion, along with a lot of things I do as a nurse and in leadership, is just to really educate people of what is available. Because I want to know. And if I'm afflicted with cancer and I see a doctor, I want to know everything that I have available to me to support me, my family. How can I be the most successful for this? Is this medication going to make me sick? Who am I going to call when I'm sick? All those things that I think there are better ways to prepare those patients that are getting that really, really scary diagnosis.
Right. And I remember when I was diagnosed, I went into my oncologist's office. And this is very typical across the board, the people that I've talked to. You go in there, they give you a big packet, right? I don't even think I looked at that packet, to be honest with you, Jennifer. I was so crazed out in my mind from the diagnosis and all of the things that I had to go through and was thinking about. And I don't even know if any of that information was in that packet. So I'm sure that one of your biggest missions is to make sure that all providers know about the service so that the provider and the patient can make there's these shared decision-making type opportunities, like what is best for this individual. And everyone's different. It's not a cookie cutter. Everyone has different needs. And so if I was going through something, I would want to know from my providers, hey, there's this service that can come to your home and your insurance will pay for it and things like that. We don't even know sometimes what our insurance will pay for. So what is your conversation that you have with providers to be able to get that information out to patients? And it is guaranteed that patients are going to have this information and have this option for them.
Gotcha. Well, it takes a great oncologist that's kind of looking at all different sides and really looking at the patient as not just an individual, but looking at their whole structure. So the earlier the discussion happens, the better off that it is for the patients and families. Because again, it's a scary diagnosis. There's a lot going on, just like what you said about the pamphlet, very, very common, even with hospice and palliative care. You know, in a perfect scenario, and when I've talked to different oncology, and one of the really great ones was a pediatric oncologist, and his team had said, you know, Jennifer, it would be so great that these different entities available, medical support in the community that's available, would all stand in a line when a patient and their family come through for their first office visit. And we would shake their hand and introduce ourselves. And this is the specialty that I do and I see. And then that's in a perfect world, you know. But yet it's not that that's undoable. Maybe we want to all be standing in a line, but the more that we educate and talk to physicians and their team members, the more that they feel confidence too in talking about other basically treatment plans. And I know when you and I had talked, and specifically this is about cancer patients, this podcast, and testing the breasts and the importance of that. You know, some people come in and they're not that sick, right? They're feeling okay, but they've gotten this diagnosis and they're going to do an aggressive treatment plan. It's all hands on deck, going full force. Great. But what's really nice in that during that first initial period is to have a palliative consult and maybe meet someone like myself or one of my team members to say, I am rooting for you. I got you. If anything comes up, call us, let us know. We're available 24/7, because sometimes, unfortunately, and with treatment, you can get very ill and sick. Your oncologist isn't going to admit you to their office. So then that leaves you the only option, which is to go to the emergency department. And I've still to this day, I've been a nurse for almost 25 years. I've never had anyone ever say to me, this is so great. I love being sick and feeling terrible and going to the emergency room and laying on that horrible stretcher, bright lights, and you're like pushing the button and you feel terrible and it takes forever. Like being involved with a mobile palliative company, that's going to alleviate some of that. You're going to have that ability and that relationship building with a different medical community based entity that will be able to help you. And if that does happen, of course, our hope and goal is that it doesn't happen. Many people have treatment and they're like, hey, I didn't suffer so much from the known side effects that could happen. I'm doing pretty good. So that's great. And we keep in touch with them. Maybe once a month we check in. But again, it's really dependent on where the treatment, how it's going, and what are the debilitating negative effects that are happening. Sometimes patients, you know, again, diagnosed with a terminal cancer and it's been going on for a while and they didn't know they didn't have any signs or symptoms and they're already a stage 4. We do see that. That can definitely come in as a palliative consult, but in reading the medical records, that's also cluing us in that we may have a transition sooner than later to hospice. And we want to open up that really tough conversation with patients, their families, and sometimes even their oncologist and care team model, because it's hard. It's really hard to say and to bring up and talk about end of life and the plans that need to be made. And it's a part of our culture and our country. And I love to use my family for examples. I call them my aunties. And I've got lots of aunts, but these are the 2 aunties. They don't believe, they don't get it. And I'm thinking, you know me, you know what I do, but still they can't get around of what the benefit offers. And so I think I always use that to say it's hard, and it's even hard for me. I'm, of course, here the expert, apparently. And I think I know a lot, but still, it's a challenge to talk to people and to broach those subjects of end of life and preparation, but yet so important, because really getting the aggressive treatment, the cancer diagnosis, you're on plan A and to do everything you can to get things in remission and to feeling good again and moving past this. And then, of course, those that aren't as fortunate, you have to, to know there's a plan B in place and what it is going to look like. I've seen over and over again give people such great peace and confidence that transition plan's available when the patient's ready.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that would be very difficult. And I guess, when it all comes down to it, Jennifer, you're a human being and you've got feelings. And even though you are the professional and you are the one that has to tell these people and help them through, you're a human being. And it makes sense that that might be a little emotional for you. And you probably get close to people and lose people and see people move on and live their lives, and things like that. But yeah, I think that it would be a great idea to have everyone come together and introduce, and so that people have an understanding of what their options are. Because I was in the hospital quite a bit during my cancer treatment because dehydration or low blood, like I had low hemoglobin and I had to have a lot of blood transfusions. And so I spent a ton of time. And because a lot of the times that when I did not feel well, when something was going wrong, it was after hours. So I would call and talk to the after hours doctor that was on call. And then there were a lot of times where I was told, go to emergency.
Sure.
So knowing that this is out there, I wish I would have known. And again, that is why I have this podcast, is to make sure that I get these resources out to people. Okay. So what do people need to know about commercial insurance coverage for beneficiaries with a cancer diagnosis?
So thank you for bringing that up. I was waiting for that to come on to this. So commercial carriers, nearly all of them have a benefit carved into them for hospice. And that is something that, again, having an aggressive oncologist that is aggressively treating you, but also saying and knowing this is going to be a struggle. This may be this male or female's fourth, fifth, ninth, 10th line of chemo. I've had patients in 12th line of chemo before. They've been fighting for over a decade to keep this cancer at bay and get it in remission. And they've done it over a period of time. But what that benefit is, and say they're Blue Cross Blue Shield, like for yourself, for your example, how you felt badly and you said go to the emergency room, you could be getting the aggressive treatment that you were doing with your oncologist. You could also access your hospice benefit through your commercial carrier and get that full support 24/7 in your home, bringing in those obviously fluid transfusions you were talking about. We can't do blood at home, but what we can do is help for transport for you to get to an outpatient clinic. We're working with that clinic. We're updating your oncologist. We're doing these things. We're doing advanced pain management, symptom management. We're really, really good at that. And one of the things that make us so good is because we can go there every day if needed, even multiple times a day. It just depends. It's a very individualized plan of care. And what the facts are is when this does happen for a commercially insured patient fighting for their lives and for remission, is that they live better, they live longer, their pain is managed, they're able to spend that quality time with their family, and they have that ability to continue to assess what their goals are. And what we do as a hospice company for a commercially benefited cancer patient that's getting treatment is we're aligning our goals with them. Like, what are your goals? My goal is to beat this cancer and for it to be gone and banished once and for all. We're like, okay, we're with you. What's your other goal? What's important to you? A lot of times I've heard from women, I want to be able to get my kids to school. I want to be able to make dinner. I'm exhausted. I have the side effects from classic opioids. So it's those things that we do when we bring in and we're like, okay, guess what? We can use different medications, and sometimes their mechanism is different, but it's much better for pain control, and get those started and monitor those long-term care medications that sometimes oncologists are kind of scared to prescribe because it's difficult for them to follow. They don't have the ability to come to your house at 2 a.m. or 8 a.m. or all those things that are needed. So it's something that I first initially carved out in the Phoenix market. It's been almost 10 years now. And I know with talking with yourself, Jamie and Amy and other team members in Nevada have been like, I've never heard, what is this? And so, yeah, thanks again for having me on, because the more we talk and the more we reach out to people, and that those for myself with my insurance is GIA. If I have cancer and it's not, I want to go, I want to ask my oncologist, look at my benefits or call my insurance to say what benefits are afforded to me. What help and support can I have while I'm doing this huge battle for my life? So.
Yeah. I just keep thinking in my head, I could have used some of the services during my journey. And I'm really hoping that people are listening to this and understand that they need to be able to access those resources. And I'm glad that you're talking to Nevada Cancer Coalition. I'm not sure whether you've talked to Cancer Community Clubhouse. I know those two organizations, Cancer Community Clubhouse with Natalie Stevenson, and making sure that people there know what their options are as well. So
Yeah.
you come from a line of veterans. So
Correct.
they're very near and dear to your heart. And Infinity has some really great benefits for veterans. What veteran support and benefits are there for themselves and their spouses?
There's quite a bit, and it depends on the veteran, depends on their service and if some veterans like my husband and son-in-law have some disability attached to their years of service. So that changes what benefits are afforded to the veteran. And of course, even the spouse. If your spouse was a veteran and has passed away, you have the ability to access your spouse's veteran benefits. So one that's really important is called time and attendance. And that is private duty care support coming into your home every day. The Veterans Administration pays for it. That's millions upon millions of dollars that are stacked in there for veterans and their spouses to access. So with us and our programs all being a level 5, which is the highest level you can attain within the We Honor Veterans organization, we have not only on staff veterans that are working for us, but we also have connections with veteran service officers who are typically referred to as VSOs. We're able to access and get your DD 214, whether it be for your spouse that's no longer with us or if it is for the veteran themselves. They typically know where that paperwork is, but things get lost over time. A lot of veterans that we're seeing now are the Vietnam era. They didn't want to hold on to things that attached them to that really terrible time in history. And we've done some amazing work with those veterans. We still have some Korean veterans, and we always, again, are asking, and that's a part of what we do for palliative and hospice, is to screen for if there is anyone in the family that is a veteran and to make sure that we're doing the recognition as needed. It's not even have to be on our census or getting treatment. We partner all over with, even I know in Phoenix, we do a couple of the transfusion rooms where we go in and they'll let us know veterans are there, and we'll go in and do an award and just a recognition and say thank you, shake their hand. And again, a lot of them are Vietnam veterans. So they really, I think in our minds, we think, oh, people are telling them thanks and I don't need to, and I feel funny about it. And it's like, no. And then that's what I love about our programs is how we've all been so energized to be so engaged because we've gotten and accessed the knowledge and education to give us that confidence for veterans and different branches of service that each individual has served with, and they serve for all of us. So it's a great opportunity to be able to give back to the veteran and to access benefits. Fact is, and which is really mind-boggling, is that 70% of VA veteran benefits are left on the table.
Yep.
Veterans and their spouses are not accessing them. Again, another level of things that I'm passionate about. I want to know what my husband has afforded to him as a veteran, 30 years, two combat tours that he did, and that, what will the VA cover and what will our commercial insurance, and maybe we're Medicare by that time and he's sick. I want to see, well, what can I get covered through the VA? And so that maybe he's dual benefited and can get aggressive treatment at 70 years old and get palliative hospice care. So those are the things that we're always talking about and getting out to anyone that'll listen to us, because it's what it takes.
Well, I'm really glad that you actually talked to veterans about that because, yes, 70%. And we found that out probably within the last, say, maybe 4 years. My husband was in the 82nd Airborne and he has friends who served with him. There were some of them who have never gotten their benefits, and some of them are like, you need to go get your benefits. Like, these are here for you. And it's amazing how many say, nah, that guy lost a leg over there. I didn't lose the leg. He deserves it more than I do. And the fact is that I don't think it's a pie. I don't think like if you go get your benefits, it's not taking away from the guy who lost his leg. Right. So
Exactly.
I think they've got in their mind this guilt thing, like, hey, you know what? I served my country and I don't even want
They
to think about
survived.
that anymore and whatever. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
totally our situation. So we now know what benefits are out there. So I know now that if my husband got cancer, this service would be great for him. And hopefully people around the country can know what services are afforded to them in their area. Because I know you guys are, yeah, Arizona and Nevada
Right.
specifically. Cool.
Yeah. And, we're seeing more. And again, the Vietnam era population is that upon us. They're well into their 70s, and it's so rewarding. They definitely want to have that recognition. It's been some of the best memories that I'll carry with me my life. You couldn't have said it better as far as veterans not getting registered and accessing their benefits, thinking that some had it much worse than they had it. And my son, he's just now getting involved and getting registered in the VA system. He's been out of the service for over 11 years. And he went in right away at 18, and he was an infantryman. And I'm very, very, very proud of him. He's my inspiration on many, many levels because he served and he didn't complain, and he just was there, and he was a whiz with weapons. But he said he never had discharged his weapon. Sometimes I'm not sure about that right now, but because then that's very common too, is where people will come home in their service and they say, it was okay, I'm good. But it takes him a while. And so it's taken him 11 years, and he's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm okay. I need to talk to somebody. And so again, I'm so proud of him to get that help. And it's so much, we never know what a veteran's path was. And I'm always so want to hear the story, because I just love people. I love their stories, and to find out what brought them to that crossroads and to sign their name on that list to the government. It's a blank check.
Yeah. That was the whole point we were trying to make with my husband, because he was one of those that didn't access it for years.
Right.
He jumped out of an airplane, a million times. Yeah, I don't even know how many times, where
Right.
it damaged his hips. He has two artificial hips now. He's got sciatica. He's got a lot of stuff going on with his body. And this was all related
Service
to that. So
connected.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And I think it's so important. And I will say that as a spouse of a veteran, I was just approved for Champ VA. And
Great.
I didn't even know that even existed. And so when I go get my breast surgery, my second phase breast surgery, the revision to the mastectomy and reconstruction in New Orleans, they take Champ VA. And
Awesome.
so my benefits with that totally outweigh Medicare. I mean, not Medicare,
Right.
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Right. Yes.
It is really, really that dramatic. So I'm
Yeah.
like, thank you.
Hence the importance of doing that screening of veteran, if they're a veteran involved, if it's the patient themselves or if it's a spouse of a deceased patient. I had my sister-in-law recently, I'm sharing this because it was too cute. And she was looking for help and guidance for her good friend who lives in Illinois for her mother. And I said, was her dad a veteran? And my sister-in-law said, no, he was an accountant. I said, okay, great, but ask the question. So a
Yeah.
couple hours later, she comes back. She says, yes, he was a veteran. He served in Korea. I said, okay, now let's talk about the VA. So, it's funny how she said, well, no, he's not. He wasn't a veteran. He was an accountant. But what was he doing in the 50s? We need to look and see and ask, were you possibly in Korea? Because that was that was a large activation and deployment of our men and women during that period of time. So.
Right. Yeah. And it takes someone like you and me to ask those questions
Sure.
and kind of jog their memory a little. And
Right.
yeah. So we talked a little bit about medication and advanced medication. Do you have anything else to say about that? What kind of management support there is at home as far as advanced medication?
When I think of that as advancement, I'm thinking of, especially if an individual has a port. If they're in a pain crisis, the ability for us to access that port is a beautiful thing. We're able to get those medications that you wouldn't typically see in the hospital. I mean, we can get them, manage them, and they actually stay in the home so that they're there preferably before they're needed, because again, to be the most success is to have the tools in place. And so that's something that we're always looking at as well. So the ability to access the port at home and to quickly get medications in via that port is wonderful. If a patient doesn't have a port, there's other ways that we can access medications. We use some sub-Q catheters, which are super effective because maybe people are tired of having in their port is not accessible, maybe for some reason or another. So again, that is another option. The ability to safely use long-term opioid controlled medications is helpful. We hear a lot about fentanyl in our news media. But on the medical side, the facts are it's extremely, extremely effective. It's used in all different types of different scenarios, always used in the operating room typically, because it's just great opioid antagonist. It's just great. It works great, blocks pain. We can use that in transdermal patch. Sometimes that's very effective for our cancer patients. But then also there's a medication called methadone, which is extremely, extremely effective, sometimes more so than any classic opioid. For one, it controls the pain really well, especially generalized pain, even bone pain and visceral pain. It works really well, but it's also can be very dangerous. The danger part of methadone is the way that it acts in all medications of having a half-life and a short life is what we call. So methadone takes a while to build up in the system and hence needs that observation from a trained clinician, a registered nurse, a nurse practitioner, one of our MDs. We're all very highly involved in that. We're building up this interdisciplinary group of medical professionals to manage that medication. But methadone it's a game changer for, I always think of women because we're always busy and want to do stuff. And a lot of times we're obviously, when they are suffering from cancer, their classic opioids are being used, and those common side effects are the drowsiness and the sleeping and extensive constipation and things that get us in the hospital. Methadone can totally change and flip that picture where they don't have the constipation. It doesn't give you that feeling of a high or any negative way whatsoever. But obviously it takes a little bit, 48 to 72 hours to build up to the full potential because that's how long the half-life is for methadone. But what we find over and over again, and which I love, is that women that I've had the honor to be their nurse and to look at their medications that they're on and to give them education and the opportunity of trying something different. They're all up for trying something different because they want to have pain control and they want to be as mobile and move as much as possible. And then to be able to say, I got my son to school. Because again, the methadone doesn't have those classic side effects where you couldn't operate a car or you couldn't do a class or you couldn't go out to dinner. When we're in pain and we're struggling and we're nauseous and we feel good, how are they living? It's like such a struggle. And again, that's why I'm so passionate about getting the education out there for commercial benefited patients and even for Medicare patients, because this isn't just affecting us, it's affecting our whole government. And the facts is that keeping people, humans, out of the hospital and keeping them in home and the right level of community care saves a lot of money. More important than that is the patient satisfaction, is that it goes through the roof. When you have a good, well-rounded mobile medical practice coming in and doing a plan of care for you as a patient and supporting your family while you're still, whether you're getting treatment or not, it is really a great, great benefit. It's the hospice benefit for Medicare is the largest medical benefit of the United States government. And the fact that we pay for it our whole lives and we don't know a lot about it. So
yeah, that is very true. I mean, you're telling me things that my mind is blown. Thinking about all these things that your company does and other companies, how many people are in our area that work for Infinity? How does that work? For example, if I needed somebody to come to my house right now,
they would be there in an hour.
Okay.
They'd be there in an hour. So I'm really proud of that. Thank you for asking that. We have staff obviously here in Reno for palliative and for hospice. We have 3 NPs, nurse practitioners. We have 2 physicians. Both of those are MDs. We have 10 nurses. And then on top of those nurses, you have myself here. I'm not here all the time, but I'm still a registered nurse. And I legit go out and touch people out in Reno because it helps fill my well. We have clinical leadership that are registered nurses as well. We've got LPNs. We have CNAs that are the backbone of what we do. They do that incredibly important, like intimate care, that sometimes it's a struggle for us if we're not feeling well or can't breathe well. We still want to be clean. And of course, then the chaplain, social workers, our volunteer program, our veteran support. So that is we hold ourselves to extremely high standards, and from referral to connection to admission, whether it be palliative or hospice, we have a 4-hour time limit that we put on ourselves. And that's not for during the day at 2 p.m., that's at 2 a.m. in the morning. So if we get a call from a palliative patient in the middle of the night and things are going really badly, we're able to organize and put a medical team together to go out to that patient's home and do an assessment, talk with them, because maybe they were at the end of their treatment plan and they knew that that they couldn't take it much more. To have someone to call at 2 a.m. to come out and immediately start setting things up for them and get them comfortable is amazing, versus going to one of the area emergency rooms who don't know you and may or may not know your oncologist and cardiologist and pulmonologist. I mean, I can go on and on. You go through the whole rigmarole because in their defense at the hospital, you're coming there for help. So they're like, okay, we want to help you, but I need to dig in and do this and check your blood because I don't know you. So then there comes that time before you know it, you're there for 12 hours and you just really needed something stronger than Zofran.
Thinking back, I went to the hospital emergency, I would say 4 times, because I was so exhausted, and it was because my hemoglobin was so low. I had one doctor, emergency room doctor, who actually took the time to really learn about me and read. He was so interested in my story and what I was going through that he came in there numerous times to really get what was going on straight. And it made me feel so much better, because really you are just a number in there, honestly, and they're really
He made
nice.
a difference.
He
made a
did.
difference in your life for the rest of your life. You will always remember how that made you feel. Yeah.
100%. And I actually went online. I was so impressed and so touched by his ability to do that, his human nature, that I went online and put a review on there. I said, this doctor is rock solid. Like, he cares and he wanted to do what was best for me. And he kept on looking at my records, looking at everything. And he's the one that said, you shouldn't be an emergency. This is what should be happening. And I'm just like, okay, so I was blown away.
Yeah.
I want to remind my audience, just to kind of interject here and remind my audience and go back to something that you said that really stuck out in my mind. I love the fact that you all sit down with the patient and come up with a plan together. And by asking them what their needs are, like, what is concerning you? What are your goals? I love that you do that, because that does not happen every single day of our lives when we are dealing with something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that there is a service out there like Infinity to be able to sit down and actually be a human being and treat these people like human beings and asking them those questions. I want my audience to understand that what this means and what they have access to and what they really need to keep in mind if they ever need something like this. So thank you really, truly, for saying that. And that gave me goosebumps in a really good way.
Yeah, I mean, we think in our minds that what you just said would be so easy, right? Like, okay, I'm Jennifer, I'm a nurse, and I'm going to Jamie's house. I've never met her. I don't know where she lives. I don't know what's important to her. I don't know her religious background, her belief system, how her family operates. There's all these unknowns, and we go out to people's homes, and I love that, because it takes confidence on our end, but we certainly do a lot of training to be able to open exactly what you said, to open up that dialogue and to say what keeps you up at night. Because a lot of times people, they cover well. And if their spouse is there, sometimes even their children, it's hard to find out. And really the thing is what is important to you, the patient, what do you want? Because for me, and I always say to all of my teams and that I work with, to say, it's find out what they want. People should get what they want, and need. Kind of, you have to look between the two. Is it really needed, or do you just want it? It's different things. And again, that the support of the family is huge, because so many times and they're usually an older person that has really just struggled and struggled and struggled. And you ask them, how are things going? And they like, it's terrible. I hate this. I don't want to go. But they go for their kids or they go for their husband. And sometimes just even that, it kind of opens the dialogue and the tears start flowing with the family and saying, well, I don't want you to be sick. And, it's almost like getting them to say that it's okay, because it has to be okay. But yeah, it's a lot. We do so many things. And again, it's just not really doing a job. It's that old saying, do what you love and you'll never work a day. I mean, going in and being able to talk to patients and their families and making a difference. And as you said earlier, you can imagine how close that we can get to people. I know I shared some stuff with you at lunch. And, I carry those patients with me every day of my life. I'm so honored to have been able to help them and know them and to make a difference, that their days were good. And when they were having a bad day, meaning pain or some negative symptom, I was able to get over there and get meds out delivered to their house. To me, it was magical, just magical to be able to work that fast.
That's great. I want to wrap this up by reiterating to my audience that advocating for yourself is so, so important. Asking questions. But I also like that you all ask questions that they may never have thought about, or they felt guilty about asking, or whatever it is, because we never know when there's a strong personality like me saying, hey, and asking questions and trying to get to what I can access to make my life better during this time. And then you have your people who are super, super, very private and sometimes a little meek and not asking these questions. So you all have these questions in place that you can ask them to help them understand that this is something that you can use. This is something that will help you. So that's great. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to share before we wrap up? Because I know that you have a meeting to get to. And so,
Thank you for having me. I hope to come back again and to reach out. We're certainly pushing forward through primarily the state of Nevada, where you reside up there in northern Nevada. So we're very passionate about the education and to talking to any of the oncology groups and patients. And we're excited, because we've seen how it made such a difference in our Phoenix market and really caught on. And so we're really pushing to do that here in Nevada so that people know humans, beings, that they're treated as such, not just a number, and that they're heard and listened to and what's important, and then getting that for them.
Great. Well, I'm grateful for that. And I just appreciate your taking the time and helping us all understand. And yes, if we can come back on the show and talk about other things, that would be great. And thank you, Jennifer. I hope the rest of your day is amazing, just like the person that you are. And I'm so glad to know you. And to my guests, and thank you for listening to this episode of Test Those Breasts, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I hope you got some great, much needed information that will help you with your journey. As always, I am open for guests to add value to my show, and I'm also open to being a guest on other podcasts where I can add value. So please reach out if you'd like to collaborate. My contact information is in the show notes. I rely on people like you to listen, rate, review, and share this podcast with your loved ones. So please enjoy my trailer and any other episodes. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm on Apple, Spotify, and other platforms. I look forward to sharing my next episode of Test Those Breasts.